The thunder was so loud it shook the foundation of the house, but it was nothing compared to the sound of my own heart hammering against my ribs when I knocked on his door. My mother was 10 miles away, trapped at the hospital by the storm, leaving me alone with a man I barely knew, my stepdad. David, I thought I was just looking for a safe place to hide from the lightning, but as soon as the door opened, the look in his eyes told me I'd walked into a different kind of danger. He didn't offer me a seat or a blanket. He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear, and whispered the words that would end my innocence forever. If you're staying in my bed, you're paying the rent. That was the night the house rules changed, and the night I realized some storms are meant to be felt from the inside. Dear listeners, before I begin telling this complicated story of my life, I ask you to support my channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and write the comment which city you are listening from. This is very important for us. And now enjoy listening. The house always felt different when Mom was on the night shift at the hospital. It was too big, too quiet, and filled with the kind of shadows that make you question every creak in the floorboards. My stepdad, David, had lived with us for 3 years, but we were still like polite strangers. He was a man of few words, stern, disciplined, and always watching. Tonight was different. The sky wasn't just gray, it was bruised. The Weather Channel had been warning about a once-in-a-decade storm, and as the first crack of thunder rattled the windows, I felt that familiar, childish knot of panic in my chest. I've always been terrified of storms. Mom usually sat with me, but tonight I was alone, or at least I thought I was. By midnight, the power flickered and died. The darkness was absolute. A lightning strike hit so close to the house that the ground vibrated. And that was it. My resolve snapped. I grabbed a pillow and ran down the hallway. I stopped outside David's door. I felt ridiculous. I was 20 years old, not 5. But the next boom of thunder made me gasp, and before I could think, I knocked. The door opened instantly. David was standing there, silhouetted by the lightning, looking like he hadn't been sleeping at all. "I'm scared, David," I whispered. He didn't laugh. He just stepped aside and let me in. The air in his room smelled like cedar and expensive cologne. It felt safe at first. I crawled into the far side of his king-sized bed, clutching my pillow like a shield. We lay there in silence for a long time, the rain drumming a frantic rhythm on the roof. Every time the lightning flashed, I could see his profile. He was looking at me, not the ceiling. "You know, Sarah," he said, his voice a low rumble that felt like it was vibrating through the mattress. "In this house, everything has a price. You can't just come in here and take my peace without offering something in return." I thought he was joking.
I laughed nervously. "What do you want, David?" "I'll do the dishes for a month." He moved then. It was slow, deliberate. He leaned over me, his hand resting on the pillow next to my head. "I don't care about the dishes," he whispered. "I want to know how far you're willing to go to feel safe. If you stay in this bed, you pay the rent, and the rent tonight is ... everything." The fear of the storm was suddenly replaced by a different kind of adrenaline. It was wrong. He was my mother's husband. He was a man who sat at the head of our table. But in the dark, with the world screaming outside, those titles felt like they belonged to a different life. He didn't rush. He started with a touch on my cheek, then my shoulder. Every movement was a question, and my silence was the answer. "Your mother is a fast sleeper when she's exhausted," he murmured against my ear. "And even if she were here, she wouldn't hear us over this rain." The rent he spoke of wasn't just a moment. It was a total surrender. As the storm reached its peak, the lines we had drawn over the last 3 years vanished. I realized that the storm outside was nothing compared to the one he was starting inside this room. When the sun finally broke through the clouds the next morning, the world looked clean, but I felt permanently marked. I woke up back in my own bed, unsure of how I got there. David was in the kitchen, making coffee just like any other morning. He didn't look at me differently. He didn't mention the storm. But as I walked past him to get a glass of water, he leaned in and whispered, "The clouds are coming back on Friday. Make sure you're ready." I realized then that I hadn't just found comfort in the storm. I had entered into a contract, and every time it rained, I knew exactly where I'd be and exactly what it would cost me. My mom thinks I've finally gotten over my fear of thunder. She has no idea that now I pray for the rain,